Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Flipping the World podcast. We are here at the Digital Wildcatter studio in Houston, and we're so thankful to be able to record here in person. As you've noticed, in 2025, we've decided to go from virtual to in person, and it's 100 times better because we get to meet our guests, like today, President of DTech, Lane Magness. And it's just so much different than through a screen and be able to just have a conversation. And I think for the audience, leave down the comments below if you think that this is better and you just like the podcast more now. So we're going to get started on your story, Lane. And I know Jamie's going to get into the first question, but I kind of wanted to put the title out on I will never get into the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
Something we've all heard before, especially when you grew up in like an oil field town.
Yeah.
And Jamie, bring us into question number one.
Well, Lane, just like Massiel had mentioned, first of all, just fabulous to have you here. We've had such a great conversation since you've even arrived. Just love the in-person vibes. And I was just really shocked to hear your story. So tell our listeners about growing up in Hobbs, New Mexico, but also being around the oil and gas industry and seeing what it was like and telling yourself, I'm not going to enter it, but knowingly sitting here now, you definitely are in the energy industry. Yeah. So talk to us about what it was like growing up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I grew up in Hobbs, which you mentioned, obviously, but it was, you're inundated with it, right? It's everywhere. I think you see white pickups and white vehicles pretty much everywhere, so you get pretty used to this is just the way it is. This is what you do. Everybody's parents work in it, or for the most part, one at least parent works in it. And you see it, and you're around it, but you just think, I don't do the same old thing, and I don't want to do it. But it's also, you don't really understand what's involved with it or how cool it can be. So I think that's a big part of it too that was never really impressed upon me as a kid of like, oh, this is really cool stuff. It's really technical stuff that we're doing, right? So I think those things kind of lead to it. As you get a taste of it, you get to learn more and more, and then it kind of drives the interest in it. So yeah.
Well, what was your first impression though? Like growing up in it, you talked about all the families around you were in oil and gas.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, what did you think you were going to do if it wasn't going to be that?
I thought I'd be in public service somewhere. So I thought I'd either join the military or be a first responder of some nature. That's really what I thought I would do long term. Made a lot of plans to do those things, coming straight out of school, having EMT licenses and doing these things, and then deciding, okay, it's time to go back to school, and then working for a congressman in a congressman's office, right? Thought I would continue that. And then, just that's the way I always saw my life going. Never in oil and gas. So, yeah.
I think we all have this kind of vision of what we think we're going to do. And like, I'm going to be doing this and this, and then reality hits and you're like, wow. And then you're given a different opportunity. So tell us a little bit of how that path kind of got crossed with oil and gas and what made you come in and what was your first role? So it got crossed just basically coming out of school. Didn't really know what I was going to do. I think we talked about, like, I thought, I'm going to continue to go to graduate school. I'm going to do all these different things. And then as the realism hits of like, hey, that costs a lot of money. And I need money. I need to pay bills.
And then my wife and I had just gotten engaged. And so it's a situation where it's like, I gotta get on the horse here somewhere and do something. The opportunity came up where I started interviewing for jobs and doing things the more, I wouldn't say traditional route, but the more, city route through the oil and gas side, through the Houston big companies, like financial analyst type, interviews and things like that and different positions. And just happened to run across someone I knew through home of, hey, we're hiring in Midland. You should throw your hat in the ring and just see. Oh, sure. So I drove and interviewed and met with the guy, and it was, we're going to give you a truck, we're going to give you a laptop, and we're going to do all this stuff. And you're like, oh my God, coming out of school, this is epic. Like, yeah, I'm in. This is sweet. Yeah. What do? You just leave me alone. I go sell. Like, I go talk to people. And
you're like, I can do that.
Yeah. You're like, this sounds great.
Yeah, I can do it. And then showed up and realized, man, okay, Midland's its own special place. You got to kind of reset. It's not Lubbock. It's not a college town. And so did that. So I came in as a field sales guy, basically a field sales rep for Baker and drill bits. Started West Mentone, which is my area. So Western Delaware Basin. All the way from Fort Stockton up to almost Lee County, New Mexico.
So tell me, you went to Texas Tech, but you did not study engineering.
No.
So there was, like, when you got the job at Baker, and they're like, okay, you're going to sell drill bits.
Yeah.
Were you like, what is a drill bit?
Kinda, yeah. I remember sitting in my boss, who would become my boss's office, interviewing with him, and he's explaining to me what a drill bit is. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, like, I remember being a kid, and there'd be a drilling rig 100 feet from my house, or basically 100 yards, no more. And I always see, oh, yeah, they're drilling holes in the ground for oil, but you never think, well, how?
How?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What goes into that, right? And so he's sitting there explaining it to me, and I was like, oh. And I remember going out and calling my wife and being like, it's for drill bits, and she's like, oh, like you put into like a DeWalt. Into
Yeah. So many people think that.
I think
Yeah.
no, and so yeah, having to go through that was a learning curve, and showing up. Honestly, I've always been pretty mechanical. Like I've been interested. Like in high school, I built my own truck with my dad, and that's my truck as we rebuilt one. So I've always been really interested in that stuff. So it helped a lot on that side, understanding it or getting to know it quicker. But it was definitely a fish out of water experience going from basically every day, day to day, you're working in a congressman's office dealing with constituents and their complaints on some bill that happened in DC.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
oh, yes, I'll put it in this, sure. And then very professional setting to now I'm in a company man's office on a drilling rig
He's swearing at
in
you.
2013.
Did you ever did you think drill bits were like that dynamic? Because I remember when I started in drill bits and then Slumberjay put me through like this whole training. I'm like, whoa, bit hydraulics, like the whole thing.
Sexy, man. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of cool stuff. Yeah.
There's so many cool
And,
stuff.
yeah, it was neat. And Baker did a really good job too, hyping it of like, be proud of the brand and like rep the brand. And I mean, I think I told you that. I mean, I was all in for Baker. I thought I'm retiring here. This is where I'm going to be. I loved it. We had a good crew. And then they kept investing in you and, learning and continuing to get better and better at what you're doing. So it was fantastic on that. And I did not know there was so much to it, right? Like every time you'd kind of peel back the onion, you'd figure something else out on, oh, this is one little variable that affects us. And there's another little variable. And here's another little variable. Yeah. So it was really, really interesting.
Very cool.
Getting into it. But
So I think two things that you mentioned that are super important is network, because you would have never got that job without knowing that person.
right.
So it's who you know, and that's huge.
Yeah.
Second is you took the opportunity that was given to you and actually acted on it. Not a lot of people are going to move to Midland, even though they're like, here's a job and you're going to get all these things. And it's like, well, I got to move. And like, I just got married and we're going to stay here. And so it's so important, I think, in a lot of people's stories that you took action and then now you're reaping the rewards, et cetera. But you could have chosen to just not taking the opportunity.
yeah, big time.
So I think that's important. And then I remember when we spoke to you at the beginning when we were getting to know your story, there was something on when you first started, you became a manager pretty quickly and then dealing with operations and leading a team at a very young age. And you mentioned that just somebody saw kind of leadership in you very young and gave you that opportunity. So I thought that was quite interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about, first of all, not being even part of the industry that long, you come in, you're the young guy, you get out of sales, because maybe you could have done a full sales career, but he saw more of that leadership in you of leading teams. But then that's hard because the oil field, usually when you work with people, they've been there for 20, 30 years and you're the new person coming in. So how did you deal with switching from sales to all of a sudden leading and like having to do operations without having been maybe on the technical side and like worked on a drilling rig to now you're like running ops? Tell us a little bit about just, that must have been drinking out of a fire hose.
Big
you
time.
know?
Yeah, no, it's exactly what it was for some time. I still feel like even today though, there's still chapters you turn a corner and it's like, oh, there's a new technical requirement we have to fill and you don't know. But even back then it was very much an effort thing, I think. I mean, again, I think I spoke to you about it. We had my boss at the time at Baker was excellent in the fact that you might be smarter than me, you might be all this, but you're not going to outwork me. And he kind of ingrained that into all of us, which is why that crew kind of, I try to keep
Kept
us
together.
together on purpose.
Yeah.
Because we all think very much alike in how to work that effort, right? And so it was a situation where, it was, I remember driving down the road. He was riding with me on my training. We're driving down the road and I see a rig and he's like, I had ridden with another field guy who was leaving, who was taking his field. And he's like, what about that rig? And I was like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. They don't run us or whatever. Like it was 2 weeks into the job.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, what? They don't run us. Pull in. And I was like, what? And he was like, no, we need to go talk to him. And that was just how he was very like direct. I'm like, well, why not? Let's go find out. And so he drove that a lot. So that was a lot of the effort and just learning. And Baker did it in a way, I think back then, that you're kind of immersed in it. So you either swam or you sank, right? Sadly. But it worked really well for some of us because you didn't have a choice but to pick it up. And honestly, sitting with customers in their offices on the rigs was one of the best ways to learn because there's things happening and there's other product lines in the office talking and you're like, you'd find some of those company men that you got close to And you would ask them, well, what is that? What's that
Yeah.
do? How's that work? Right. And I think I did a lot more learning in that environment than I ever did in a classroom, just being out in the rigs and hanging out and understanding what's going on. So I think that's helpful. But then that was the biggest thing on that crew was just work. I mean, it was company man calls, you show up, right?
Yeah.
That was it.
Putting that like sweat and tears kind of at the
Yeah.
beginning and kind of making a name for yourself,
Yeah.
I think is important, your brand, your reputation, and kind of what your colleagues think of you. Because then when you step into management like you did, then
That
they'll
was
have
hard.
way more respect for you.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's still hard dynamic wise on age.
It was.
Because I feel like we always get judged on like, you guys are still young, you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
So how did you deal on just leading that team and
Yeah.
building that trust when maybe they were like, well, how is he running the team?
I think the first thing I did was just, hey, I wouldn't ask him to do anything I wouldn't do. So if it's 2 a.m. and a phone call, like, and I know they had been out all day, I would say, okay, well, hey, call me and I'll go with you. I've been in the office all day. You've been out hitting rigs. You just got called out again. That's how we did it. Okay, go. But that was something that was ingrained in us culturally. We just took care of each other, tried to. So I think that mattered a lot. I didn't sit in the office and
Yeah.
just wait, right? I got out. and
Which
did it.
happens sometimes
Big
when
time.
they, someone becomes manager. They're like, oh, okay,
Oh, it's
and they
cake,
close
yeah. I
the
mean,
door, and
Yes.
they just
Yeah.
change, and then kind of forget about the people they were in the field with.
And
you
it's
know?
tempting, right? You go from having to drive 8,000 miles a month on average is what we would averagely drive back then. And then now you're in the office, like, well, this is nice. You know, I don't have to see a windshield
Yeah.
for 9 hours a day. This is cool. So it is tempting, but at the same time, you quickly learn if you want those guys to continue, then you have to get out with them. I think that was a big part of it. And it was also just being humble in the fact that, like, I don't know everything. I mean, some of these guys that I was over all of a sudden had 10, 15 years experience. Some of them had 5 years experience just in Baker, just doing that, right? So they knew the ins and outs of the technology, of everything that I didn't quite know fully yet, right? So it was a lot of leaning on them and being humble enough to say, like, hey, I don't know, or hey, do you have an idea that's different, or does that work? I think that helped a lot too. But yeah, that was a very hard transition going from the new kid, literally the new kid they called you, or the college boys we got called a lot too in the field. I mean, that's part of it, but you kind of earn your stripes, you know what I mean? And that means a lot. And now looking back in my position today, there's a lot of things that happen on the rigs that had I not had that time, I wouldn't fully understand, or I couldn't fully appreciate the situation. You know what I mean?
Or even know like how important it is to go out there on the rig and spend that time.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like a lot of people get stuck in the office, like we mentioned, and then they're like, well, why is the rig not picking me up?
That's right.
Well, why don't you go out there? Well, no, I can do it from here. Call the engineer. The engineer is not the one. You need to go to the rig.
It's
So
a
I feel
village,
like for you today in the business that you're doing, it's important that you had those experiences. Looking at that, what kind of relationships do you feel were the most pivotal that still today is like huge, especially running, D-Tech, it's a smaller organization, so you don't have like this huge Baker Hughes, tons of people. Yeah. So like what do you lean on now, and like what are you proud of those relationships that you like cultivated?
Yeah, I think it's that trust with the people, right? I mean, and we've tried to keep that same crew that we kind of broke out together in that area, and some other people that have been with us for the entire time I've been at D-Tech. I think it's really important because we've built a culture to where we're pretty transparent with our customers and with everyone on, hey, I mean, we talked about it before we started, I guess the performance means everything, right? And so it's very easy with what we sell now. I mean, bits maybe is a little different with ROP or control, and maybe some of that's more subjective, and there's other variables. What we do now, it's either you steer or you don't. Did it steer?
Did you go the right direction or not?
Yeah.
It's pretty black and white, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a situation where, and then we get the data back because these tools are quite complex and they record a lot of data. So it's a very easy story to tell when you get the data. You're like, well, which was very hard on bits, which was kind of your soothsaying, like, well, this cutter looks here, and
Yes.
you know,
Or
all
you
these
put too
different
much weight
things.
on bit, or they
Yeah.
were pushing too hard. That's why
Exactly.
this happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's very black and white. Like, hey, here's what happened. So we have a full reporting structure. I think that transparency and that trust we've built with a lot of people, whether good, bad, right? I mean, there's a lot of, I guess, learning curves we had in bringing the technology out at D-Tech especially. But I think everybody goes through that when they bring a new product out or do something. But how we handle it, I think, is what we're most proud of. And we still to this day started at Baker with that product line and that group of guys, to today on how we handle things. It's just like, hey man, it didn't work. It's on us. It should have.
Yeah.
Or even switching our mindset from, well, you're really rough on it. It's like, well, this application, it is rough.
Yeah.
Us trying to just level ourselves up to the fact of like, hey, we need to engineer something that just works.
Yeah.
We can't always have this caveat of like, well,
Yeah.
trying to do that right. And I think that's one of the biggest things. But that was really all built by all of those relationships where guys would just have a no BS conversation with you at the rig. Like, hey man,
Yeah.
I'm not picking you up because your stuff sucks. I'm not picking you up because like you couldn't get it done this well, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, time to go back.
It's so nice when they're blunt. It's so nice when they're blunt.
Yeah,
So tell me, you talked a lot about how positive your Baker Hughes was, great company. Why did you leave?
Same kind of, I think most people leave, which is you see ahead and you go, man, the pipeline's pretty full with personnel, right? And I think it's a situation where you look at it and you know the different product lines, you kind of can see where it is. And there's a lot of other things that come into it with a large company too, which, hey, I need to take care of my customer here. Well, economically for the whole company, that might not be the best thing for the company. But it's the best thing for my customer, but maybe not for the whole company. And I think there were some situations coming when I was towards the end of my time at Baker where I was getting stuck in a lot of those positions by no fault of anybody or the company or anything. It just timing, the way the industry was working out and what was happening. I was put in these really weird situations.
Almost like your hands were tied and you wanted to do the right thing, but it's a huge organization.
Yeah.
You still have to, like, the ship's going this way.
Right.
So you just gotta go.
Exactly, right. And you know what you need to do to keep the customers happy.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And so that kind of drove me to start looking. And then honestly, I felt like we maybe got away from just the, sales to me is very easy. It's scoreboard. What's the scoreboard say every month? And I felt like that kind of started dropping in importance and maybe other things started climbing up in importance. And that's when I was like, this isn't what I thought I'd be doing for 30 years when I first started. Like I was like, I'm in, man. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Like I love it.
Yeah.
And I just happened to get an opportunity, and the opportunity arose of something new. I had seen it a couple times on rigs being trialed, very interested in it. And honestly, I met the people. And the people in the company who backed it was kind of what sold me on it. And that's where I really got interested in making a change. Because it really could be, they're very agile. Like you said, the ship going that way, right? Those kind of companies, you're stuck on like a huge, cruise ship. And whereas you go to a company like DTEC, you're on a speedboat.
Yeah.
I mean, you're learning every single day is a learning opportunity, right? Whereas the big companies, it's like, well, yeah, we've seen that before. Yeah, we know that. But
we've been there for like 80, 90 years.
And at that point, there's just not enough sometimes economic incentive to make a change.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Where at DTEC, it's like, yeah, go do it. So
Try,
that's really
try
fun.
things out and So
that aggressiveness is what I liked of like, let's go get it. And it was so new as a blank slate. There was really a very small team. They really didn't have a sales presence at all in U.S. land at all or overseas. And so it was that time of like, hey, we're ready to take this commercial and see what we can do. Sweet.
It was a cool startup.
Yep.
It was like you've got the product ready to go. Now it's just kind of implementing the rest of what you were already good at because you knew the people, you were in the industry.
relationships.
It was fun. Yeah, exactly. Because it was an instant opportunity to fill a void that, we could easily do in Midland. So,
So tell me a little bit about, I remember you had kind of like a mentor, a guy that was out in the field, still there, I believe. You're trying to get him to come to DTEC. If he listens, he knows. If you listen, we want you at DTEC. And he kind of told you some good advice, which I think when the opportunity came, you thought of him in that moment and thought, I'm going to do this. Yeah. Can you share a little bit about that story?
I tell him that every time I talk to him and I try to get him to come work for me. The only reason I left is because of this conversation. We actually had a drill bit stuck on a motor. It was one of my very first times as a manager. And he started as my boss. And then we got to become equals, kind of. I mean, in title, but I still was leaning on him a lot. Like, hey, what do we do?
Yeah.
And so he was still a great mentor. But it was a situation where we had a bit get stuck. We had to go pick it up, and he just happened to say offhand, I'll never forget it. Hey, you want to come with me? See this directional company? Sure, I didn't know much about directional company. Sure, let's go check it out. And we go to get the bid off, and we walk in, and all of these guys know him. He's like royalty in this place. And I'm just like, how do you know all these guys? Like, where do they come from? He's like, oh, they're all ex-Baker guys. We used to work together. Oh. Interesting. And I was like, well, how come you didn't go? And we were driving out this time with the bit in the back. And he's like, yeah, I kick myself every day. I should have done it. I should have taken the leap. And I was like, but why? And he's like, just the opportunity was there. And I just remember thinking and I was like, well, why didn't you? And he's like, I'm just too loyal. I just can't do it. Which is same today, still the same issue. He's still too loyal. I mean, not too loyal. That's a good thing. And I think it's
it's a good thing.
And I like that a lot. And one of the hardest decisions I ever made was leaving that company. I mean, just period. But he told me that, and I remember thinking, well, why? And he's like, if I could do it over, I asked him, if you could do it over again, would you do it different? And he goes, yeah, I take the jump. And I remember when the opportunity came for DTEC, same thing, talking to him as a coworker at that time, and then our boss, and then our boss's boss, and then our boss's boss, because, I'm
Yes.
leaving, and then all of a sudden everyone shows up.
Yeah, always.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, wait,
Yeah.
now everybody
So
shows up to the party?
I try to remember that nowadays,
Yeah.
but not let it get to that point. But yeah, that's what it was. And so that was a big pivotal moment for me to say, like, okay, I need to take a risk. It's time.
It's time
a
to
good
take a
risk.
risk.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good risk.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Having all these experiences, like from the field, from the operations, now leading teams at DTech, like what do you take from those experiences that you think are really important, like leading today, especially since it's a small team?
Yeah.
And so everything you do is going to be like very seen.
Yeah.
In a big organization, you kind of can get like Massiel and I always say, like, you can kind of hide in the walls, like, oh, it wasn't me,
Yeah.
But
I
that
don't know.
no,
I don't
yeah,
do it.
yeah,
So
but
many people touching this one thing.
Yeah, that you can blame it.
accountability, there
Yes.
isn't any
it's-
really. And so, but when it's small, it's very noticeable.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, again, the principles haven't changed. I think it works really well. It worked for me in the field, my very first management role to today. It's trying to be out in front and try to be there and be visible.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important to be positive, like to have a vision that's positive that people can get behind and they feel empowered with it. Like, yes, we want to do this. I want to be on this ride too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I say it every day, like, this is where we're going. If you want to be a part of it, we'd love to have you. If not, you need to get off the ship because it's not going to work, right? But we try to be very positive about it, and we try to be humble, kind of like a humble servant leader, right? Is that everybody talks about being a servant leader, and that's like, yeah, you do these things for people, but it's also, I mean, I'm just one cog in the wheel, right? I play my role, and then everybody else plays their role in the company. And I think that's the biggest thing too, and none is more important than the other, I think. There's more pressure and maybe some more responsibilities, but they all play a very important role. And I think in a company our size, that is also very seen because it's, there is no hiding. There's no melting into the walls. It's really like, hey, somebody dropped the ball and you go back and track it. And there's only so many of us that touched it.
Yeah.
So I think that helps in itself, just being a smaller environment, because it kind of polices itself on its own, where people just do what they need to do. But I think leadership wise, in this role currently, it's really about that, just trying to be transparent with the organization, as well as just try to do everything you can to help people be successful. And then if they are, then a lot of times that breeds almost not a loyalty, but everybody's just much more fulfilled in what they're doing day to day when they find that success.
Yeah.
So,
No, I love that. And then question on, so when you joined DTech, you started, again, like BD, sales, kind of running their North America sales. And then you made it to president in a short amount of time, in a way,
yeah, I don't, yeah.
There seems to be a pattern of sales. All of a sudden, they're like, this guy's the leader. He can, and then boom, you kind of get switched into it.
Yeah.
When you joined DTech, obviously you took a big leap of faith getting out of Baker. You were looking at the pipeline being long. Did becoming a president, like, was that in your dream list? Was that in your, like, I'm going to develop myself so much that I want to be a president? Did it just randomly, like, you're just doing good work and it came to you?
I mean, obviously I wanted to move up and continue to grow with the organization as it grew, but it was never something like when I joined, I wanted to do this. I thought like, oh, maybe one day if I became like a VP or something, if the company was big enough,
I would have
to
made
need
it.
me,
Yeah.
Whoa, because at Baker, that's like years away.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're like, oh, that's cool. But it wasn't something that I started out with. I think it was just, sales is very involved with the day to day, right? They see the economic side, they see the big strategic side, but also they have their finger on the pulse of what's happening on the ground in real time. Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Yeah.
But they are always honest feedback. And I think, I think DTech, right? I've had other salespeople come along who worked with me throughout that time period who were excellent. They've gone other places, would still bring them right back, right? But I think it was a situation where we were a new company, we were cutting teeth, there was different problems that have to be addressed and moved through. And I think I just decided I want to see this work. I believe in it. I believe in the
So you're
technology.
willing
I
to
see
do
it.
maybe
Yeah.
beyond the sales. You want to get involved in
For
the
sure.
company.
I see a problem and I would be vocal about the problem.
Yeah.
We need to solve this problem. If we solve this problem, we'll get X. And then the new problem would arise. Here's the next thing. Okay, well, now if we solve this, we'll get Y. And we just kept doing it. And it's kind of something you get addicted to and helping. But it's also now with the company, it's kind of like your, I say it's like my love project, it's my passion project of what I do. But it's something that you just get into and you start seeing these and do more and more and more. And I think that just instantly grows into management, especially a smaller company that's growing. You just instantly get the opportunity. It's like, well, you got an idea, fix it. And our parent company is really great about, they like to promote from within. They like to continue to keep that knowledge base inside. which I think is really valuable to the company. And also they do a good job at keeping people on, right? I mean, trying to do things that make it advantageous to stay rather than advance your career or advance your family. You have to go somewhere else to do that. So they try to do the best they can with that, and they give us the keys to that. So overall, I think that's how you end up staying in an organization like this. But it's just, it was never something I sat down and said,
one day
I'm gonna be. No, it wasn't. Just not how I am.
So tell me, I want to know about the tool, because I have to say I've been out of drilling for a while, so I'm not familiar with what it is. And also, you mentioned that y'all are based international. So where is that about? Like, where and abouts are y'all located? And then how do they develop the technology? Is this new technologies or anything on the market that's like it? Tell me a little bit about it.
I mean, it's a similar concept to what's established on the market, and you see more and more tools going that way. So it's a push the bit system.
Okay.
We use pistons, not pads, those kind of things. So similar to what other things operate on the theory on how it operates, it's just how we operate is very different. We started, a lot of rotary steerable technology came from an offshore approach, like it was designed for really high-end offshore wells. And then it was kind of modified to bring onshore to use on land. But there's a lot of issues with that, cost, complexities, those things, right? So we are kind of the first ones to start from a different approach where we're going to start with the most, smooth, clean, simple version we could, and then build its technical capabilities off of that for reliability and cost purposes. And then as we've kind of balanced out, right? I think some of the higher end tools have come down in some of their ability to be economically, advantageous on land, and we've kind of come up in our technical ability. So we've kind of measured that out. On the market, right? It's very similar to what's out there on the big tools outside of Baker's tool. The auto track's still quite a bit different, but from what else is out there, it's very similar. I mean, obviously, we're not the majors, so we don't have, obviously, the history they do on those tools. But for what we're doing, we're making good progress. I mean, we're able to go toe-to-toe in a lot of different markets. I think that's been the rapid growth we've seen over the last 3 years and the expansion. But again, it's about performance, right? We get the opportunity. A lot of it is still me and my team sitting down from whoever it is across wherever it is in the world. I don't like doing video.
You're like, let me come meet you.
If I'm going to ask you to invest in us, I want you to know me.
Yes.
And then you can call me if there's a problem. Because we are asking for, it's not like peanuts, right? We're asking for a big investment. So I want people to feel comfortable with that. And then I think that from that point, then it becomes about the performance. And then once the performance clicks in, people go, oh man, this is really good for my drilling program. This is really good for the bottom line. And then it's, again, the model is very transparent, so it's easy. But technology-wise, I don't want to say everything they can do, we can do. Kind of, it's just we might do it differently, right? How we achieve the same functionality, but we do it differently sometimes.
I love it.
Yeah, and I think the market nowadays is way more open to that. Like 20, 30 years ago, the small fish probably wouldn't get an opportunity because it was just like these big brands that everybody knew. Nowadays, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, audience, but most people nowadays want to try the small, new tech, young companies that are like, we can do what they can do. And here's our stuff. And we're agile and we're quick. You don't have to deal with the big bureaucracy and stuff like that. So I do see, especially in the US Canadian market, that's become a thing where people are willing to try out the new people. So I think it's good timing, in my opinion. For
it is true. When we first sat down, I made the blue blood comment, right? Yeah. I think that's part of it is people are, especially with what our product line is, it is kind of synonymous with very expensive usually, some risk involved economically when you put one in the hole, those kind of things, right? So I think some of your larger operators and stuff, I think, get a little nervous to start try things without a huge track record, right? Nobody wants to be the bleeding edge, as they call it, right? Touche. But it's also a situation where I think, right, for us, the biggest thing is our partners in the industry. So our directional
people
partners.
People are willing to work with you on
well, because they know the tools. I can sell the tool to X operator all day long, but if that directional partner isn't invested to make it successful and they don't want it to be successful, it's not going to be successful, or it's not as successful as it could be.
Yes.
And so that's what we found internationally, and we've just really come back to U.S. land and really focused on that. Internationally, we kind of have a partner or two in every country, just on the directional side, and that's worked really well for them because not only do they own the tools, they're maintaining the tools, they're inspecting the tools, we're teaching them how to do this. And then for us, exponentially, that's just more run data faster. Learn faster, right? So that's the other side of that too, is those partners in the market.
Well, I don't want to end the podcast without talking about family. So I don't know. I was not part of your pre-interview, so I do not know about like. I know you mentioned you were married right out of college. Do you have any kids? What did your wife think about you also moving to Midland to then you had this big organization you're working for. You felt very protected, and then you're like, hey, I'm going to go to this smaller company. Like, how has that worked out, and how were you able to manage it?
No, it was fun actually. So my wife's kind of like my other half. We have a fun. We were just last night. We took the kids to the rodeo, so did that whole debacle right, with the crowds and stuff. But we have 3 kids, so 10. She'll be 10 in a few months. So 10, 8, and 6.
Oh, so good.
So they're all moving up in like the next 2 months. So
yes,
on some of their ages. But yeah, so we've been married. This will be 13 years this year, and so it's the family's kind of everything, which is also kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to make the move. Honestly. Baker was really good to us, but it was one of those situations where it was like, it's very rigid. And then the smaller company was like, just make it work.
Yeah.
Like, figure out, just find
perform.
a way.
We don't, we're not going to see if you're like at the office at 7:30.
If the scoreboard's good, then we're good.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's what it was. Oh, this is cool. I can do this. So that was cool. But when I came to her, we had Tinley, our oldest, was at that time, gosh, what was she? Almost 2 when I came to her and said, hey, I just got hit up by this recruiter. I think this might be a good opportunity. And she was pregnant with our second.
Ooh,
so she was like, I don't know. And so then, but we talked about it, and push come to shove. And again, the leadership at the time met her, and she came
nice.
to
wow.
and she got to come to an interview and meet them and talk to them. and
I've
ask them
never
questions.
heard of
I
a
love
spouse
that.
coming to an interview.
We'll
That's
still do that,
really
yeah,
cool.
for
I
certain
personally like
positions.
that.
I love that.
Or we'll get on conference
So you're
calls.
like, you're not just getting me. You need to get.
Yeah.
You need to make my
'Cause
wife happy.
If they're not happy, then nobody gonna be happy.
yeah.
And we're small enough. My office isn't that far away from the front door, so they can.
Yeah.
That's.
find me
I
pretty
love
quickly if
that.
there's a
Yeah.
problem.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
But they sat down with her. She felt very comfortable with it at that time because, again, not that you're ever safe in a job, right? But at Baker, it was very like, okay, you could see the future.
Yeah.
Even with the market the way it was. But, this was a big opportunity. She saw it, I think, and she's like, yeah, if you think this was the right move, let's do it.
Wow.
So yeah, we were, she was 5 months pregnant when I left Baker and moved over to D-Tech. Yeah. So there was a
Love
big,
it. Mm-hmm.
Did you also move from Midland to Houston right away?
no,
Okay,
actually, no,
that
that's
took a
another
while.
one. Yeah. So that was in 2016. And then 2019, we were pregnant with our third. And the president of D-Tech called me at the time. It was in January. And he called me and said, hey, have you ever thought about having your baby in Houston? No, we haven't. In fact, we just bought a new house in Midland. We had done all the stuff.
Yes.
He was like, no, absolutely not. I hadn't thought of that. And I said, well, you need to. We're gonna bring you here.
Yeah.
Okay, great. When? He's like, well, let me work on it. We'll figure it out. So we had Knox, our youngest. Knox was born on March 20th. And then March 8th. And then April 15th, we were in Houston.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like a bang, bang, bang. So it's just like that's how it's worked.
That's how it's
Yeah.
worked,
Yeah. So
So
it's
she's
cool.
been a huge part of your
Big time,
success in
yeah.
terms of you need that
Couldn't do
other
it.
side of like taking care of all the stuff while you're managing the business of
Yeah.
moving and the kids and the schools and
But even the day to day
a
now,
lot.
it's important because it's
Yeah.
like this company and myself, I know several guys who are some of my core group. I know what their wives do and what my wife does, and it's
Yeah.
like if they didn't do what they did, we couldn't do what we need to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big, big part of it that I think people don't miss, but maybe they don't realize fully. They see me sitting in the chair, but they don't see everything behind me.
yeah.
Yes.
And because I do a lot of international travel, and that's very hard. I'm gone for a week at a time or weird
3
hours.
kids,
Uh-huh.
And then you call and all hell's breaking loose and I can't do anything. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, it's that to me is a very core piece of being able to move forward in a career, is having that full picture. So
We have to fully agree with you. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because it is so important to see that other side. Because as you mentioned, a lot of people just see you there and they see you at these places and then they don't realize all the stuff that's going on at home. And that's like for you to be your best self, your wife has to be happy, your kids and everybody needs to be thriving. And so it's important that companies recognize that. And it sounds like D-Tech does.
for
And
all
they're
employees, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not, we have 100-ish employees, but we probably have 400 people who depend on us as a company.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a
And
really
that's-
good way to
that's-
look at it.
yes.
Yeah.
That's really how we treat it. And so we don't take things lightly when a change has to be made or bringing even a new person on. It's like, do they fit?
Mhm.
Or are
Yeah.
they going to make someone else's life coming to work harder every day? Are they going to bring enough value to make that worth it where we can deal with it?
Yeah.
Because again, the same person that comes to work, right, for them to be the best version of themselves has to have a good home that supports them.
Yes.
But we think at the same time, like when we go home, we need to be the best version of ourselves. When we
You
go
need to
home.
be happy too when you
And
get
if-
home.
And if
Not
work's a nightmare, then
you're gonna bring that into your household.
and it's going to create animosity between the family and the company, and that's something we don't want to do either.
Yeah.
So it's a big piece of it.
So I think for the last question on that topic of family, how do you, at the end of the day, like on the balance side, to make sure you spend time with your kids? Like, do you have some sort of like rules where like we have dinner together? Like we've talked to so many people that have like so many different ways. What tip do you advise on someone who's as busy as you? How do you take that time when there's not quantity, but it's quality, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I personally never feel like it's enough. Like I never feel like I'm doing enough or I'm there enough, or I always feel like but I just always feel like I'm failing in general. Like I'm always that person who needs to.
And I like that you said that because I feel like a lot of women always talk about like motherhood guilt, but men never, they never get
Especially
asked.
in our stuff.
Let's just say they never get asked. It's always like, oh, you as a mom, like, how do you feel about your kid being home? Like, no one asked the men, but I'm glad you're mentioning because I know it's also tough where you're like, I want to spend more time with my kids. They're not going to have their childhood forever, you know?
My daughter's 9, fixing to turn 10. I mean, I did the math on it a while back, and I was like, oh man, this is going quick, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something. For me, it's more of I try to just be there, right? There's certain things in the morning. I try to be there for breakfast as much as I can and see them off to school. I try to do that. Can't always make home, obviously, by the time they get out of school. But breakfast is something I always try to do. And then I'm super involved just in general, like coach baseball, Cub Scouts, that kind of thing. Like try to do all those things so I have some time with them. And not just them, but their friends as well. So their friends I know kind of.
Yes,
They're
you know their
around.
circle.
Yeah.
So we know all those things. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then I try to include them. I mean, as much as I can, I try to take them with me.
Yeah.
I mean, if like we're going to Midland or something, if I've got meetings, it's like, well, load up in the car. Or if I've got to go spend a few weeks in the UK at our manufacturing engineering facility in the summer, it's like, hey, do you guys want to go with me?
Yeah.
And they just stay with me, which makes work really easy.
So much nicer.
I love that.
Yeah.
So then you can focus, right? And same thing, we do it with some of our salespeople too. Like, hey, well, I've got this conference or something, and if it's more of a an internal type, like, hey, it's for them personal training to just get better, then take your spouse and you guys go, and if you guys can have a dinner or something, obviously with customers, stay with customers.
Yeah.
But the other stuff, it's like, we try to squeeze that in when we can to make it special.
I love that.
So
Wow, I couldn't think of a better way to end the podcast. I just love everything that you've mentioned today, and more importantly, not just your success and even how you navigated working at Baker to going to D-Tech, but this closing of like just talking about family is just so important. I love how you mentioned like how you feel like you're failing though, because so many people, like, they look at you, I'm sure, and they think you've got it like all together, because that's what we all think about anybody
When
that's
you see
in
someone's LinkedIn profile, you're like, whoa, okay.
yeah, like
together.
yeah. And so I just think like being so transparent, you just seem like a great leader. So I'm so happy that you said yes to come on the podcast today and to share your story. And we're just so happy to hear about companies like D-Tech that are really, they're there with the technology, they're there driving innovation, and they're also supporting their employees, which is so important. So thank you, Lane, for spending your time with us today.
thanks for having me.
Thank you, Lane.
Thanks.
Thank you. And if you like this podcast, please like, subscribe, and you can find us on all things Flipping the Barrel, flippingthebarrel.com, Flipping the Barrel on LinkedIn, Flipping the Barrel on Instagram. Pretty much the same thing everywhere. So
You can't miss us.
Yeah.
Flippingthebarrel.com.
And thank you, Digital Wildcatters, again for letting us use your studio. We love doing these in-person interviews. And catch you on the next podcast.
Bye.
Bye.